Hi everyone. Hopefully you can see my slides okay. My windows are a little bit weird on this side, so hopefully it's okay.
Just to say, Leslie, and you're not in presentation mode. I mean, we can see the slides, but
I've just pressed the button. There we go.
hey.
There we go. Okay, so this is a short slot, and I just wanted to do a little bit of an update of some of the things that we've been doing this quarter that haven't become a fully fledged formal work stream, but I wanted to kind of talk about it, and Michael is central to so much of what's happened here. So we set up this product council mission quite a while back now, probably last December, maybe January. And we've been very, very focused on items 1, 2, and 3, getting transparent updates, workstream goals aligned with product people. And we know that what's going on in the community at a high bird's eye level. And we did a little bit of road mapping and frameworking work. But what we've been doing in the last 3 months or so is really looking more closely at a mechanism for business requirements and new concepts and ideas to come from real world adopters and to shape the work in a way that priority contributions are simple to ask for. And we've also been doing work around supporting the marketing teams. There's a white paper that came out recently. So truly, this is what's been happening in the last 3 months. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about it today. So the context set for this, large initiatives have work streams. Mostly it was a technology-led approach, very important work streams, but very much we're about our technology backlog. Existing adopters had real-world challenges and asks that weren't 100% aligned to how the current work streams are set up. And they were very curious to how a community model could help them solve problems. At the very least, to a validated solution that will fit with the majority of existing software. And we also wanted to understand if there are common solutions to problems from multiple adopters as we go. And we wanted to ensure that there were asks from workstream leads, Michael in particular, to get connected to market actors to validate designs and to do that thinking in the open source way, in the open format. So we started from our larger product council town hall, we now call it, our format that many of you come to. We started a small volunteer group to work on requirements readiness. We are wondering to ourselves, we haven't validated this at all yet, but we're really wondering to ourselves that if we get our ideas sufficiently shaped to a prioritized ask, that maybe it might prove a valuable learning ground, learn by doing for some of the graduate coders that come out of the training program. That would be the ultimate win if we get that far, but more on that later on. So here's our little volunteer force. It's color-coded. At the center of this, we have in yellow, Fitzaworks, Mawali, and Stefan from Cyburn. Stefan is working on new hub opportunities for modular deployments. Then we have product council representation with Paul Makin. Paul's also a workstream lead, but I think in this context, he's more acting as a validation point based on his subject matter expertise. We have Michael and Lewis as DA and SIG advisors, because we do have a lot of governance in the community that we need to be kind of cognizant of as we go. And but then Michael and Lewis get to appear twice because they're also workstream leads. And what we're actively doing is working on some of Lewis and Michael's workstream activity. And also Paul Baker has joined the calls on occasion when we've been talking about business process workstream thinking. So not a closed format, but that's where our volunteers are to start with. So what have we been doing? We started by agreeing to work together 2 hours a week in 2 separate calls, Wednesday and Thursday, with an agenda ideally decided at the end of one meeting for the next meeting. The core commit to attend, but the agenda helps us to ensure that we're quorate. So if we're talking about settlement, we make sure that we've got settlement people at the table. In between times, people are working on writing PRD style artifacts, and they're learning and reading from a lot of Michael's designs for review sessions. And in our work, we have 2 types of session that we've been running. We've got requirement sessions where there's a focus on listening and writing down and thinking from the perspective of the situation that's brought to the table, how it works as is, and the desired outcome. to be. And we focus in on the why, not on the what and the how in the designs. That's where actually Michael and Lewis and his co come into their own. And then in other sessions, we have solution design reviews. Mostly it's Michael's designs. We heard today about the Forex design, for example. That's one of the big areas we've done a lot of thinking together as a group. We've mostly been reviewing Michael's designs. Michael's been iterating based on what he's heard us say and what we've understood, what we've not understood, and we've gone through in details. We don't do the design work. Michael wears so many hats in our community. Thank you so much, Michael, for your work. In this hat, he's basically working as a workstream lead, and he's bringing ideas. And then he goes back and does work with the DA and the SIGs and all the workstream activity that he does as well. So what he gets from us is a bit of validation. So what kind of topics have we been working on? Well, with Lewis, this working group started very, very small with Lewis, Michael, and I around the CBDC Hack Challenge. And what is it like to onboard for the 3 PPI? What are the use case requirements? What's going on there? And what you've seen from Lewis today is a culmination of us all working together on these things. We've done a little bit of work on Mwali's regulatory asks, a small change around KYC data availability at the hub. It's not coded, it's not ready. Michael can give us more details. We won't go into the details today, but we're actually very much needing to get to a place of asking for contribution around that now. And we've been talking about the FXP cross-network design that you've heard today in detail, and it's through the eyes of both Cybern's customer and the Mwali initiative as the two main validators, if you like, today. And then we've been also looking at real-world feedback from Myanmar. Myanmar went live in the last few weeks, which is awesome, really important progress for that project. But what they've also therefore learned by doing as a result, they've been using the finance portal UI that is now open source. And as a consequence, our business process framework and the APIs and behind it. And so there's been lots of really good feedback from Finn and me in that space. But they're not actually presenting to you this week. They're still very much in the middle of all their deep dive, but we keep on working beyond the community events. So we actually would love more contribution in that space. And obviously Paul Baker is very, very connected to that work, as is Paul Macon, as the one who's helping with scheme rule setup locally and settlement design. So don't read the details here. I just wanted to talk to you about the kind of outputs that we're creating. So we have a set of stories and the why, what's going on from a Myanmar perspective. What is Myanmar prioritizing? What are they interested in? What's going on? It's an awful lot around the business process framework side of things and the finance portal to help them run their business. What we've also been creating is workstream asks for selected work streams. So this in particular is the one with Lewis. It's a backlog of things we'd love to see in the sandbox if we can get contribution around it. And it's a very, very high level set of epics. But there's much more that we can do with the sandbox. And what I loved today from Lewis's presentation was the value was clear of having the sandbox and the demos and the ability to showcase it, because right away we can get feedback and we can see what next, what else do we want feedback on. Other things we've been doing is the concept of PRDs. So to get ready for our CBDC hackathon, Lewis had lots of work to do. He was our one-man team. And so what we did is we got together and we worked out what do we want to try and achieve as objectives, and then we built a backlog together. And we did this in combination, Michael and Lewis and me mostly, try and figure out what do we want to achieve with our hack participants. And I think you'll hear more about that later on today. What we've also done is a lot of raw meeting notes and knowledge transfer and discovery work with Miro boards and diagrams and the like to truly work out if we've got solution to market fit, to try and make sure that we all understand what's going on. And then we also have in the background an ideas backlog. There's been a lot of ideas has come my way from lots of sources. Ideas are awesome and we don't want to lose them, but they aren't prioritized work in our GitHub backlog just yet. So we just wanted to create a place for them to be tracked. And that's kicking around. You might have remembered in PI 14, I called it the wall of work. It's still kicking around. So it's absolutely not forgotten. It's just we need to build our contribution models to get back to these ideas. What we've also created is a bird's eye view of active goals for the community roadmap. This is beta. No one beyond our little core team has seen this yet. We've been working with the Google Docs version of our shared understanding what's happening. This is just another variant of the same data that we've been trying to kind of track as we go to know what's actually going on, because the goal here is that we can get a published visual out into GitHub very, very soon of the roadmap and what people are doing in the community. So what now? The ask to the technical community is that we need to find contributors to do some of the work that's been identified. For example, it could be an existing work stream, or it could be by us creating volunteer jobs boards, or it could be by us creating a GitHub ticket area that then they get linked back to experts who created the content. I also would love some help from GitHub or ViewPress experts to get the ready asks in the formal published space. We've been working in a draft format because work gets done best when we can collaborate. We do need to get to a place where things are published. And so I'd love some help from our GitHub experts around and ViewPress experts around how best do we fit in with the story that is going on. And we also, I think, need GitHub backlog product people. Our work stream leads are the unsung heroes of our community. I put so many hats on them, from Scrum Master to product owner to backlog creator for their subject matter experts skills. And I want to really thank the work stream leads for the contribution and the work that they do. There's a lot of work to be done if you volunteer to be a work stream lead. And we need to support as best we can. And actually, if we can find business analyst style contribution in the community, we can get these GitLab backlogs for the prioritized ready work as good as possible so that we're ready for contributions as quickly as possible. The give from this volunteer group is that we will provide as much contextual support for those contributors to understand and to drive through any governance committees as required. I mean, that's Michael's give in the main as the DA and the SIG, Michael and Lewis as the DA and the SIG people who kind of really understand our governance processes, because we thought actually maybe that's one of the barriers to why we aren't able to get the kind of contribution going on the asks that right now. We think that's an important give. The future vision. This core group are all part of our current town hall process. And I think what we've kind of done is imagine to ourselves that actually what we've managed to achieve in the last 3 months is a little bit of a center for enablement for a couple of work streams, specifically Lewis's and Michael's work streams. So I think with our town hall process, we now have 3 monthly events that happen between community events. And I think they're being really useful to drive a transparent mid-PI update through business people and technical people, because we get a mix and a diverse audience that turn up. I would really like to see, can we scale this model a little bit, and do other work stream leads want this kind of route to validate their roadmap with adopters and get their roadmap published as a kind of center for enablement for them too? And I would really like to figure out how do we support work stream leads driving that change and using product council as a point of validation and support asks. That's kind of where we think we can add some value in the puzzle. We're asking ourselves, is it time to scale this model? It could be. It depends how we think about how to scale this model. We think we've got a really good starting point. We've got some good things happening. I've shown you some beta assets. We need to think about how do they get into the GitHub space. I think if we get some more contribution from some of the technical teams in terms of those specific asks, the processes and the outputs will improve as a consequence. We'll make sure that we're adding value. And in particular, we'll be starting to think about who owns what, because already we've seen that there's a feedback loop that's really valuable happening in this conversation. And it can feel a little bit messy middle at times, but I think, Michael, you would say that you find it useful as a process.
Absolutely, yes. I think, I mean, the other thing that I would like to add to what you've been saying, Lucianne, is that one of the drivers for setting this kind of organisation up was to be able to talk productively about things that weren't large enough really to become work streams. So my example for this is there's the KYC stuff. Now, that's not really going to be a work stream. And one of the things that we did with it was to cut down the amount of work that we would really need to do in order to implement it, at least in the first instance. And it's that ability, I think, to look at, I mean, requirements for implementers, I don't think, are less important because they're not very large. Often it's the other way around. You know, there is kind of small things that are, and we've seen this from Khadija and from Thin, who've been attending our sessions. Often the things that really cause them grief are not very big things, and sometimes they're things that are quite easy to solve. But because they don't form part of the work stream structure of the work that we do, it's hard for them to get the attention of people who can actually make things happen. And part of, I think, both our intention in working together in this way was to provide a way where people could get things done, even if they weren't huge things. In fact, especially if they weren't huge things. Now, some of them, like, as you say, foreign exchange, have turned into something that is relatively large scale and kind of almost a work stream. But others, and as I say, among those, I think the most important, will never do that. But, you know, if we can just find good ways, simple ways of extending our product so that it supports those kinds of things, we'll get both the thanks of implementers and hopefully the ability to provide a much better experience to potential implementers.
That is the hope. And so I'm quite excited about what we've managed to achieve. We've got a nice little working group. It's really a diverse set of actors from the community, and it's got representation from, because of you and Lewis, our change control boards, our DA, our SIGs. And as a consequence, the feedback loop's been quite simple and easy. And so how we scale that's going to be an interesting next chapter for us.
Yes. Well, what I would hope is that this one outcome of generalizing this as a way of working is that people feel empowered to set up their own discussion groups of the same type to talk about things that they're interested in. So one of the things we definitely don't want, I think, is for this to become a bottleneck where everybody feels they have to take what they want to do to the same group, which will have a limited space for the availability for discussion and things like that.
And this came through deeply in our conversation as we planned for today's meeting. We actually talked to ourselves about, do we want to be about governance and bottleneck, or do we want to be about Centre for Enablement to make good things happen? And I have deep resonance, I think, for the latter.
Indeed.
So in a nutshell, I mean, that's our mini update. It's what we have is work in progress. And what we need is help to get it to a place where if we can find contribution in the community, that they understand exactly what we believe is a good design, and get the kind of the ready for the pull requests by working with the DA, the reference architecture team, everybody else in the community that makes good things happen into releases.
Yep, I would agree with that. And I guess, again, I would add to it. If there are small things that irritate you about Motion Loop, or even large things that irritate you about Motion Loop, please get in touch with Leslie Ann or me, and we will. Yeah, we're desperate to improve Motion Loop. We want it to be much, 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 much better than it is. And you're the only people who can really help us do that. So get in touch and let's get improving, is my view.
Exactly. And look, fundamentally, what product people do is fall in love with problems because they see them as opportunities. However, this does not work if we don't get the contribution model flowing. And so I also would put that ask out to my community council folk and to you as a technology community, saying, how do we solve the problem? How do we do the right thing at product council and in this volunteer workforce such that we can try and get this community model moving?
Second.
And I think at that, it's really over to you again, Simeon.